Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Don Nelson. Our big story, radical proposals to possibly save Idaho's protected salmon. During an average year, the number of spring Chinook salmon returning to Idaho by May 7th is more than 7,000. But this year, that number is less than 200. The low numbers have many alarmed, including an Idaho congressman who is asking, what if we remove dams to restore salmon? Steve Liebenthal has our continuing coverage in tonight's Idaho Backroads.
Idaho salmon are born in cool mountain water where they live for a year before beginning a 600 to 900 mile journey through 8 dams to the Pacific Ocean. After 2 to 4 years, they swim back upstream to the very water where they were born to spawn and die. It's a natural cycle that some call miraculous.
It's one of God's cycles, and we probably should not play with it.
That was the voice of Idaho Congressman Mike Simpson, one of many in the region alarmed by the small number of salmon making it back.
Well, the fisheries are down, the spawning counts are down, the return to the hatcheries are down. We haven't seen runs this dismal probably for 25, 30 years.
Fisheries biologist Jim Martin has watched salmon numbers decline during his 50-year career, and now in his retirement, he says the primary reason for that decline is the radical change in the river system. In a naturally flowing Snake and Columbia River system during spring, salmon were pushed from Idaho to the Pacific Ocean in a matter of days. But since 8 dams were built, it's now a series of lakes, and that same journey takes weeks. Martin says that extra time in the system is responsible for killing 50 to 80% of Idaho's salmon on the way downstream.
And it's not just hydro mortality in the turbines, it's creating a cold water stream that'll send smolts to sea in 11 days into a series of pools that are full of predators that warm up that send smolts to sea over 2 months.
Martin says the original 4 dams on the Columbia River set salmon back, but construction of 4 dams on the lower Snake River turned the gradual decline into a nosedive.
If you compare the status of the fish before we built the last 4 dams on the Snake to the status now, there's no comparison.
Martin is one of many in the region who say breaching the 4 dams on the lower Snake is the jumpstart Idaho salmon need to recover. Liz Hamilton agrees. The executive director of the Northwest Sport Fishing Industry Association says breaching dams may sound extreme to some, but she says it's working on other rivers in the Columbia Basin.
Several big dams have come out on behalf of salmon. We're almost ready to take out 4 dams in the Klamath. That's scheduled to start within the next year or so. So the climate and the environment around dam removal is not the sky is falling anymore. It's not the catastrophe that people predicted.
That's a nice fish.
Hamilton says breaching the 4 dams on the Snake would help sustain sport fisheries that pump billions of dollars into Northwest economies. And now Congressman Mike Simpson is asking, what if we breach the dams?
Ultimately, I want healthy, sustainable runs of salmon back in Idaho.
You are asking the question, what if we breach the dams? And I think that's what has a lot of these people excited, that that's even being discussed as a possibility. Is it a real possibility?
It is.
Idaho water users are sending 487,000 cubic feet of water downstream to help push salmon through the dams. Fish and Game releases millions of salmon smolts, and in an average year, less than 5 out of every 1,000 will make it back. This year, that number will be much smaller, depriving Idaho's river communities of the money anglers would normally spend.
We effectively pay all the cost of those dams and get none of the benefit. Now, why does that make sense to my constituents in the 2nd District?
But Simpson says he'll consider the consequences breaching dams would have on other communities before he'll embrace it. And he says it's not just about restoring salmon, it's also about restoring the Bonneville Power Administration's ability to compete in a rapidly changing energy market. Will BPA's financial crisis drive Idaho salmon to extinction? More on that next Wednesday on Idaho Backroads. Steve Liebenthal, 6 on your side.
An Iraq combat veteran is